Well, it just gets colder and colder up here in the Sierra Nevada. I guess that's what I signed up for. It's January 13th at high altitude, and we're doing this 49ers update from outside, taking you all the way to Monday Night Football, the playoff version of Monday Night Football. It's going to be held down in Arizona. Those of you affected by the fires in LA, which have caused this game to be moved to Arizona, you remain in our thoughts and prayers. Rams today will be facing the Minnesota Vikings. But these are some pivotal days for the 49ers. First off, what a weekend it was for Brock Purdy. We'll get much further into that as we discuss over the course of this show. There are a lot of people scrambling right now because for some reason, Brock Purdy is a magnet for terrible takes. Brock Purdy is a magnet for the people who don't understand quarterback play, who think this is all some video game. So they expose themselves as not knowing a whole lot about quarterback play. And that happens to be really, really thrust under the spotlight on weekends where their favorite players like Justin Herbert and Jordan Love throw up all over themselves. Brock Purdy looking a whole lot better in the eyes of many exiting this wild card weekend. We're going to get to watch Sam Darnold, who learned under Brock Purdy last year, and we're going to get to watch Matthew Stafford play in this game on Monday Night Football. So perhaps we'll have even more perspective by the time this first round of the playoffs is over. But I will say that it seems that public perception, given what we saw, the disaster classes that we saw from Justin Herbert and Jordan Love this weekend, public perception is catching up to what football people had already known. And that was that Brock Purdy is a really damn good quarterback. And I have some theories as to why Purdy has not been respected the way that he should, why people have not valued his game on the outside the way that the 49ers have and the way that the 49ers will with this upcoming contract. And it all ties together with what we've seen from Purdy over the past 3 seasons and what we have seen from some of his contemporaries who have already been handsomely rewarded with large contracts over the course of this past weekend. But first, let's move into the nuts and bolts of this update. The 49ers have announced 2 interviews for their special teams coordinator position. One I already announced last night. That is Jet Modkins, who is the Detroit Lions assistant special teams coordinator. Today, the 49ers added Chris Banjo, who is the Denver Broncos assistant special teams coordinator. These guys have something in common, and that is they are both assistants of special teams units that are in the top 4 of football. Detroit ranked number 1 this season in special teams DVOA, and Denver, Chris Banjo's team, ranked number 4 this season in special teams DVOA. The 49ers, meanwhile, well, they ranked dead last in special teams EPA. I think they were 31 of 32 in DVOA. Only the Tennessee Titans were worse. That is not company that you want to keep if you're the 49ers. So they went ahead and they fired Brian Schneider. Kyle Shanahan even called Brian Schneider the fall guy, though, during the press conference last Wednesday. And I think that was at least tacit admission that the 49ers need to do better as an organization on special teams, that it might start from that subconscious place, right? It might start from that place where Kyle Shanahan might need to put a little bit more serious emphasis on it and not have the offhand comments that we had heard so often over the course of the past few years. I just don't want special teams to screw it up. I don't really care about special teams. They're just here so they don't ruin anything. I think that the 49ers should be actively seeking to deliver a plus impact on special teams. And I think that once that happens, once that is ingrained from the top down, they can start to expect some finishes at least in the top half of the league. But they've been in the bottom half of the league way too often. In 2022, when Brian Schneider came along for his first season, the 49ers actually finished number 15. And Schneider, this goes to Shanahan saying that Schneider was the fall guy this year. Schneider was a really good special teams coach for the Seattle Seahawks under Pete Carroll for a decade, from 2010 to 2020. So I think that's more evidence that this is an organizational thing. This is something the 49ers have to take seriously from the big picture moving on down. And when you interview guys from teams that fielded really good special teams units in 2024, you are signaling, and it's more than a signal. I think you're actually getting the benefit as well, but you are at least signaling that you are doing your research as to what the secret sauce is in Detroit to make their special teams number one this year, and what the secret sauce is in Denver to make their special teams unit a top 4 unit. They rank number 4 this season. So that's Jet Modkins of the Lions, Chris Banjo, whose season just ended. They had to get Modkins last week during the Lions bye week. Now Lions coaches are off limits. The Dallas Cowboys cannot interview Ben Johnson, Detroit's offensive coordinator, until after Detroit is eliminated or after the season ends, because the 1 week window during the bye week during which Ben Johnson could be interviewed has elapsed. But unfortunately for Dallas, and this is some organizational mismanagement from Jerry Jones, he decided to part ways with Mike McCarthy. I guess it was a mutual parting since they couldn't reach agreement on a deal, but they decided to jettison their head coach, Mike McCarthy, after that open window to interview Detroit's assistants. But the 49ers got Modkins and his interview done in time before Detroit exited the bye week. Detroit now gets to play Washington and their star young quarterback, Jaden Daniels. And the 49ers were able to interview Chris Banjo, whose season ended up in Buffalo yesterday with the Broncos losing to the Buffalo Bills. The 49ers also have to conduct a full search for the offensive coordinator position, where Clay Kubiak is the heavy, overwhelming favorite to be named the new title for the 49ers. They haven't had an offensive coordinator since 2021 when Mike McDaniel had that role before he left to the Miami Dolphins. So the 49ers interviewed Noah Pauley, who is the pass game coordinator right now at Iowa State. Iowa State, of course, is the alma mater of Brock Purdy. However, Pauley did not overlap with Purdy at Iowa State, but he did overlap with Trey Lance at North Dakota State. Pauley was an offensive staffer at North Dakota State before he went to Iowa State. So this is a guy who's been an offensive staffer in his past 2 stops at the schools of Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, respectively. So at the very least, Noah Pauley is going to get some NFL job interview experience. Again, Clay Kubiak, the overwhelming favorite to officially be named OC. When I asked Kyle Shanahan last week about Clay Kubiak, I didn't ask about offensive coordinator. I just asked about Clay Kubiak, and he called plays in the 49ers' final game this season at Arizona. And Kyle Shanahan volunteered the information himself. He says he's going to be promoting Clay Kubiak to offensive coordinator. So the 49ers announced their intention to do that, but they cannot fully do that. They cannot actually dot the I's and cross the T's until after they've conducted a full search, since the position is a new position, technically. The position existed in 2021, didn't exist in 2022 and 2023. So Noah Pauley at Trey Lance's school, overlap with him over there, and probably overlap too with Randy Hedberg, the quarterback's coach, with whom the 49ers had a lot of contact at North Dakota State before they drafted Trey Lance. And on top of Noah Pauley, the 49ers have interviewed Chris Banjo and Jeff Modkins for their special teams coordinator position. Everybody, welcome into the Sierra Nevada mountains. No, I'm not in Alaska. Somebody yesterday was like, oh, Lombardi's in Alaska. Look at the dedication. I'm dedicated. I have done shows from multiple continents. That's going to continue over the course of this offseason, but I promise I actually am in California right now. You could see Mount Whitney behind me, or you will be able to see it. It's going to be partially visible. I know that we've got some depth of field issues with the camera, which are intentional. I want the good depth of field, but once the sun sets a little bit further, it's 4:43 right now, you will be able to see the highest peak in the 48 states, 14,494 feet, 66 miles as the crow flies, moving that way. All right, we're going to talk about the weekend for Brock Purdy, because he didn't even have to play to look really damn good. And he looked good this season as well. Brock Purdy finished number 7 QBR. I've talked about that a lot. He was the NFL's number 1 finisher in QBR in 2023. We already know he's one of the top quarterbacks in the game. However, there are some stragglers who are very vociferous. They're loud about this. They like to say that quarterbacks who are less accomplished than Brock Purdy are better than Brock Purdy. Sorry, guys, that's not the way that football works. This is a meritocracy. What you actually accomplish on the field determines where you are in the pecking order. Very specifically, Jordan Love and Justin Herbert. Those were two quarterbacks whom they were frequently placed ahead of Brock Purdy on the rankings of these people who don't quite know how to evaluate quarterbacks. The reason they were higher than Brock Purdy, I think, this is my theory, was because of draftism. That is the bias toward a certain player because of where he was drafted. Obviously, Brock Purdy does not have this bias working in his favor since he was picked number 262. Jordan Love picked in the first round. Justin Herbert picked in the first round. Nobody cares where these players were picked in the actual football world. In fact, go and read some Bill Walsh. I got that Bill Walsh book inside. I should bring it out here. But one of Bill Walsh's main points about the NFL draft was draft positioning stops mattering the second the pick is spent. The player's in the building, then he has to prove himself. I think that people don't realize how close together in talent a first-round pick and a seventh-round pick is. Because this is the best of the best. It's not like you're going to have a few unicorns, right? You're always going to have your Andrew Lucks or somebody that is transcendent. Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck at the quarterback position. Christian McCaffrey was one of those guys at the running back position. Of course, you're going to have guys that stick out from day one over everybody else. But in general, unless you are an expert in talent evaluation, it's not going to be all that easy for you to discern between the first round pick and the pool of second round picks and the third and the fourth rounders. The point is that the draft is a crapshoot. And the quicker that you can let go of the thought, this compulsive thought that somebody in the first round must be better for sure than somebody in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh round, the more accurately you're going to be able to evaluate things. And Bill Walsh really emphasized that. He very, very strictly said that the draft positioning is out the window the day that the pick is used. Once the player comes into the building, it is a meritocracy. All players have to prove themselves regardless of where they are picked. So along the lines of draftism, every single piece of data has indicated that Brock Purdy is a better quarterback than the two guys who were terrible this past weekend, Jordan Love and Justin Herbert. There is no stat that indicates those guys are better. There just isn't. Everything that you look up and down efficiency-wise, QBR, good throw or bad throw percentage, whichever way you want to look at it, the gap is actually fairly large. Then you look at it in terms of guiding a team to victory, because quarterback is obviously the most important position. Purdy better in those regards as well. Hell, he even beat Jordan Love head-to-head last year, and the stark difference between the two quarterbacks in crunch time could not have been more evident. Brock Purdy led a game-winning drive where he was clutch. He made pinpoint throws. He led the 49ers to a score that gave them the lead against the Packers. This was a playoff game. Jordan Love had plenty of time to rebut in the other direction, and he decided to throw across his body, just like Brett Favre did against the New Orleans Saints back when he was with the Vikings. It was almost the same identical play and throw. Horrific throw from Jordan Love. Dre Greenlaw intercepted it. 2 years later, Dre Greenlaw went down after crisscrossing the field there for about 702 days. And that was that. The game was over. So one quarterback delivered. That was Brock Purdy. One quarterback didn't. That was Jordan Love. What we saw in that one small anecdote mirrored what we had seen over the course of the actual regular season, where Purdy was the number one ranked quarterback and Love was lower than him. And there should have been no debate that Brock Purdy's better than Jordan Love. I'm sorry. Like, every single piece of data, 1 + 1 = 2. It does not equal 3. You can't find your way and math your way around this. 1 + 1 does not equal 4, does not equal 5. It's not your truth. This is the truth. This is a meritocracy. This is based on what a player actually does. That is the beauty of football. We haven't seen Purdy and Herbert go head-to-head. The last time that Herbert faced the 49ers in 2022, Jimmy Garoppolo was still the starting quarterback. By the way, Garoppolo's 49ers beat Herbert's Chargers on that day. But Herbert is often classified in the same category as Jordan Love. A quarterback with, 6'4", 6'5" QB, strong arm, runs fast, physical skill set is really good for the QB position. So he's been, the patron saint of these people who observe draftism, these people who say, okay, well, no matter what happens, the quarterback who's in the first round is going to be the better player than the quarterback later on. Because you look at it, the big arm, and Herbert has been a solid quarterback. I don't think he's been a bad quarterback, but he hadn't been anywhere near the level that a lot of his fanboys say that he's at. They treat him like a top 5, top 6 guy, and they'll try to put him like a one slight tier below your Lamar Jacksons, below your Patrick Mahomes and your Josh Allens. And the performance simply hasn't been there. In fact, since 2020, and that was the year that put Justin Herbert on the map. This was the rookie of the year season for him. Since 2020, he's ranked number 11 of 30 qualifying quarterbacks in efficiency. And it's only gotten worse since that 2020 season. Like, including 2020, he's number 11. Since 2020, he's number 14. So he's been a middle of the pack guy. And the same people who will eviscerate Brock Purdy for every single mistake that he makes, as if, no other quarterback makes mistakes, without recognizing any context behind anything, without recognizing run-pass balance, without recognizing personnel available, eligibles who are hurt, eligibles who aren't hurt, pass protection. I mean, stuff that's important for every single quarterback to have ever played the game. Like context, this is a team sport. The very same people who will ignore that for Brock Purdy will talk about it with no end when it comes to Jordan Love or especially Justin Herbert. It is absolute hypocrisy, but that hypocrisy was put on full blast, on full display. It was actually really satisfying for those of us who, engage in the truth to see how people were reacting, how their brains broke over the course of this weekend. I don't cheer for any player. I don't cheer against any player. I cheer for the truth. I cheer for good, factual analysis. And I think that good factual analysis was put under a big-time spotlight this week, because the stuff that isn't factual, the stuff that is based on draftism, that is unfair to Brock Purdy, that puts I think it's unfair to Herbert and Jordan Love too, because you're making them out to be QBs that they aren't. You're looking at physical skill set to try to make an evaluation of a position that goes way beyond physical skill set. I think it's unfair to everybody. I think ultimately the truth is fair to everybody, because that's what we strive for when we analyze football. And I think that we got a very, very good lens into what is a bunch of crap and what's actual factual analysis this past weekend. How about this? SF Data 49ers put this up. This is a look at the health of the 49ers offense, the play of Brock Purdy, the play calling of Kyle Shanahan, and the prolific production of some of their passing targets over the course of the past several seasons. So SF Data Niners does a great job. I've got to drink some tea. It's cold out here. These are expected points added per target leaders in the NFL from 2010 to 2024. So EPA per target, that is efficiency every time the ball is thrown to you. So over the past about 15 years, these are the most efficient single seasons for either wide receivers or tight ends. I don't see any running backs on there. So either receivers or tight ends. The single most efficient season for a receiver or tight end was Jordy Nelson in 2011. Rob Gronkowski in 2011 was number 2. Brandon Ayuk last year was number 3. Marcus Colston of the Saints in 2011 was number 4. And George Kittle of the 49ers this past season was number 5. So look at this. This is, first, we have to preface this with football is the ultimate team sport. You don't have success by yourself in this league. I don't care who you are. Tom Brady didn't have success by himself. Patrick Mahomes hadn't had success by himself. Joe Montana, no success by himself. Steve Young, he's the poster child of what happens when you enter a better situation. He was with the Buccaneers first. People considered him a bad quarterback, went to the 49ers, turned into a Hall of Famer. So you absolutely have to have a system working for you. And a system involves the play caller. A system involves your teammates, so your targets as a quarterback. It involves, it doesn't technically involve the defense that you're playing against, but that's going to interplay with the system that you are running. That's going to be part of the formula that ends up delivering results. So we have to look at this with the complexity that it deserves. And the first thing that I want you to see, when we look for commonalities throughout things and we look for, where certain players might affect the formula of efficiency, where certain coaches might affect the formula of efficiency, look at the 5 most efficient receiving targets of the past 15 years and let's delve into who the quarterback throwing to them was. Jordy Nelson, 2011. Aaron Rodgers was throwing the football to him. All right, future Hall of Famer. Rob Gronkowski in 2011. Something was in the water in 2011, by the way. It was a really efficient year. Who was throwing the football to Rob Gronkowski in 2011? Oh, right, Tom Brady, referred to as the greatest of all time, or one of the 2 greatest of all times if you're going to toss Joe Montana up there with Brady. But that is what's going on in number 2. Number 3, that's Brock Purdy, quarterback for Brandon Ayuk in 2023. Number 4, Marcus Colston, 2011. His QB was Drew Brees, also will be in Canton. And number 5, this past season's version of George Kittle. Who was his quarterback? Brock Purdy. So you have, out of the top 5 receiving seasons, you've got 3 quarterbacks who are surefire Hall of Famers at some point. You've got Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Drew Brees. The only quarterback who falls on this list twice is Brock Purdy. I'm not saying he's a future Hall of Famer. I am saying he is in very good company. And when you have an overlap like this, you have to pay attention. Efficiency of this caliber does not just happen accidentally. It does not just happen because Kyle Shanahan is drawing a certain play on his Microsoft Surface and snap of the finger, that play works like magic. It has to be executed repeatedly, because this is an efficiency rate over the course of the full season, over and over and over again. It's got to, the quarterback has to deliver, the play caller has to deliver, the receiver has to deliver. You do not attain elite results if you're not getting elite contributions from all of the components of the formula. So just food for thought. Brock Purdy is the only QB out of Rodgers, Brady, and Brees thrown to these receivers in the top 5 who has now appeared on the top 5 list twice. George Kittle put up those numbers in 2024 when Ayuk wasn't available for most of the season. Ayuk did it in 2023 when the 49ers had an offense that was, I think, reminiscent of the greatest show on turf, Rams, in terms of efficiency. They ran things a little bit differently, but the efficiency of the 49ers in that 2023 season, I wrote that article that I talked to Dick Vermeil, I talked to Kurt Warner, Mike Martz, all those guys extremely high on Brock Purdy and his ability to execute a timing-based system at the very highest of levels. All right, we got a couple minutes until kickoff. Let me get a little bit more tea here. Trying to stay warm. Let's also take a look at my phone if I have it. I hope I have it. I think I do, because we could put the game on here. I want to stay with you guys through sunset so we could watch the first part of this Rams game. Rams and Vikings out here. And then we can make our move inside once it gets dark. But isn't this beautiful? I think at this point, yep, you could probably see Mount Whitney there at this time. Not coming through as clear on camera. Maybe I pick this up in a few minutes. But although yesterday I did that and it was already darker, right now you can actually see Mount Whitney, which is really cool. So maybe I abandoned post here a little bit sooner while the sun is still on it. But what I'm doing is opening up YouTube TV and getting this onto Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams. Looks like we still have a minute and a half before the broadcast starts. So we got Scott Van Pelt up on the screen. Put this over here. 49ers defensive coordinator search. So Robert Saleh, we're considering the favorite for this. He's already interviewed with the 49ers. That doesn't mean he's getting the job. He's still also interviewing for head coaching positions. A name that I want to talk a little bit more about is Dennis Allen. Now, I might even throw an opinion in here. I think that Dennis Allen might be the ultimate fit for the 49ers. This is, speaking of the Saints with Marcus Colston, I don't think Allen was around the Saints back then yet, but he was with Sean Payton as his defensive coordinator for several years. Let me see what years Dennis Allen was with the Saints. Was he there when Marcus Colston was there? I don't think so, because Dennis has been around the league. He's had 2 head coaching jobs. It's hard to see him getting another head coaching job, at least in the near future. He wasn't with New Orleans yet. He was with the Denver Broncos, actually, as their defensive coordinator in 2011. Then with the Raiders as their head coach from 2012 to 2014. Then he went to New Orleans in 2015, and he's with the Saints all the way up until 2024. But from 15 to 21, Dennis Allen was the Saints defensive coordinator. He was a good one at that. He's a 4-3 guru. The 49ers, I think, need their Steve Spagnuolo. The 49ers, I think it was very obvious that the brain drain started to catch up to the 49ers this past year. You can only replenish for so long when you have to replenish top-tier coaching talent. And you see Robert Saleh leave, you see DeMeco Ryans leave. You can build up a staff that's resilient to those departures for a certain period of time, but that period of time is finite. And ultimately, you've got to find somebody who's already taken a crack at a head coaching job or 2, probably isn't going to get another one, just wants to be a coordinator. Steve Spagnuolo's that guy for the Chiefs. They have continuity at defensive coordinator, so they're not getting hurt by this year-in, year-out brain drain. And I think that Dennis Allen might actually fall into that boat. 4-3 guru. So this guy's run 4-3 fronts. He likes to run he's run 3 safeties before. Of course, he runs a nickel package, your standard nickel package with a nickel back and 2 cornerbacks. He has adapted throughout the years around the 4-man front, which obviously the 49ers currently have the personnel for. In fact, if there's one position group along the defense that the 49ers would like to keep more or less the same, moving from 2024 to 2025, obviously with an infusion, you could, they would love to add a player, but more or less they'd like to keep the group the same. It is the defensive line. I don't think they want to make a major drastic personnel overhaul to have to go to a 3-4 this offseason. So Allen runs the 4-3. Allen has run a lot of good defenses, and most importantly, Dennis Allen has consistently fielded good third down and red zone defenses. And I called third down the money down. I call red zone the money zone. Those are the areas of the field and the times of the game where game planning is still important, but improvisation takes on added importance. So first down is the game plan down. Second down, probably somewhere in between first and third down. Third down is the coaching down. It is the improvisation down. On offense, third down is the quarterbacks down. The QBs who deliver on third down, those are typically the best QBs in the league. Defenses that deliver on third down, they're typically coordinated by the better play callers in the league. And when we talk about the brain drain, the 49ers dipped all the way down to number 27 in cumulative play caller rating from Steve Patton and Patton Analytics this past season. The defense was near the bottom. So they decided to move on from Nick Sorensen. He's not going to be the defensive coordinator anymore for the 49ers. They need somebody who could win on third down in the red zone with diversified looks, with more blitzes. Remember, they blitzed fewer than anybody else in the league last year with 2 or more men. They need somebody to modernize with the times the way that Brian Flores is doing it in Minnesota. We're about to see the Vikings play the Rams. I can't wait to see how much Brian Flores tries to light up the McVay system. I should get out notes and count over the course of this game and then report back. We're going to have a live after this game. So we're going to watch how much Flores does it. We're going to see if the 49ers can find their way into a higher that blitzes at closer to that rate. Flores is number 1 in the league. We've watched how much Spagnuolo does it. That's actually beaten the 49ers in a Super Bowl. And we can confidently say that somebody like Dennis Allen can also light him up with blitzes. He hasn't blitzed as much as Flores or Spagnuolo, but I think it's just food for thought. I think that it checks a lot of the boxes that the 49ers are looking for. Experience, Kyle Shanahan has talked about that. Ability to diversify, adapt, and blitz. Well, Dennis Allen could do that. And also fit within the 4-3. And Dennis Allen being a 4-3 guru, a great defensive coordinator for the Saints over the years, fits into that mold as well. Plus, you can have the continuity there if he's not going to be hired away immediately to be a head coach. I know that in 2022, the 49ers shut out the Saints. I believe the final score was 13-0. What was lost on many people, because it was a great 49ers defensive performance, they still had DeMeco Ryans there. What was lost on many people was the fact that the 49ers only scored 13 in that game, and the reason they only scored 13 was because Dennis Allen called a hell of a game plan against San Francisco. I know that Kyle Shanahan left that game with a lot of respect for Dennis Allen. So I'm just connecting the dots. And as this 49ers DC search continues, I think Dennis Allen is a name that you should keep in the forefront of your mind. All right, so these are pivotal days for the 49ers. Chris Banjo and Jet Madkins have interviewed for special teams coordinator. Those are coordinators of two prolific special teams units, Detroit and Denver. Noah Pauley from Iowa State, previously of North Dakota State, is interviewed for the OC position that almost certainly is going to go to Clay Kubiak. And we're talking about the great weekend for Brock Purdy as the Rams are taking the field. That's at SoFi right now. There's Matthew Stafford working his way through the tunnel at SoFi Stadium. So I have the game up here. Oh, there's Sam Darnold and the Vikings. As soon as this game starts, we're going to go inside the watch, but maybe I have time to answer a couple of questions. Also, this show is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/gameon today. That's rocketmoney.com/gameon, rocketmoney.com/gameon. Time for the Q&A. Let's go. Eric Gomes says, ask some good question, guys. And yes, and ask them quickly because we are near kickoff in Rams Vikings. Nothing new on Greenlaw, and there's not going to be anything new until at least when the 49ers hire a defensive coordinator. They've got to figure out the staff before they can figure out the personnel, or at least finalize some of the things regarding the personnel. You're right. They are down in Arizona. I thought it was in SoFi for a second. My mistake. Game is at State Farm Stadium in Arizona, same tunnel that the 49ers walked out of just over a week ago. Mike says that Greenlaw's agent will go to the NFL Combine to determine his value. That's probably how things will work. That's how they typically do. And the Combine is not until about 6 weeks from now, at the end of February. Honestly, Kyle doesn't need to micromanage the special teams. I don't think you have to worry about that. I think that if Kyle Shanahan micromanages the special teams, the 49ers would actually be making progress. I think the issue so far up to now has been that he doesn't care enough about the special teams. So don't worry about Kyle Shanahan micromanaging the special teams, because that would actually be a good thing for the 49ers. Hell yes, it's a nice background. So yeah, Mount Whitney is there. I want to keep on talking right now because the game hasn't started, so I'm not going to take the camera out. But I'm pointing at Mount Whitney. It's in that range. I just don't think that let me make this screen bigger. Yeah, you just can't really see it through the lens right now. But I promise you, it's right there. And this is our third straight sunset show. We'll have to make this a tradition whenever I'm up here. At least one more tomorrow. Give me a thumbs up if you want another sunset show tomorrow. Mr. Bacon and Eggs thinks that the Rams are going home tonight. That would not make Jim Everett, our local resident Rams fan, all too happy. What positions are the 49ers looking to improve through the draft? All of them. You always try to improve all the positions through the draft. They're going to have like 10 picks, so they can focus on best player available. Maybe at the very start, you zero in on somebody, but I think that best player available is obviously going to be the overarching strategy for the majority of the draft. What are my thoughts on Hargrave? Will he return? My thoughts on Hargrave are that the 49ers wised up. Last year, there seemed to be some ruffled feathers when they asked Eric Armstead to take a pay cut. Armstead ended up not taking a pay cut with the 49ers, although he was offered a lot of money. Armstead was at 17, 18 million with the 49ers. 49ers asked him to take a pay cut to 6 million. He said no. I think they were willing to negotiate up to about 10 based on my math, based on what I've gathered. But he signed with Jacksonville for 14 million. So it seems that Armstead was out of their price range. This year, the 49ers realized they'd be in a similar bind with Javon Hargrave. They were eliminated from playoff contention much earlier, so I think they had the luxury of executing this much earlier. But they told Javon, hey, we're going to cut you with a post-June 1st designation, which is what they did with Eric Armstead. But we're going to let you know much sooner about this so that there's a chance if there were any ruffled feathers or hurt feelings, that can be smoothed over. Hargrave, just like Armstead, is going to have a chance to see his market, and the 49ers hope they can bring Hargrave back at an amenable price to them. Is that going to be $6 million like they thought for Armstead? Is it going to be a little bit higher? I don't know. Is he going to get an offer that blows everybody away and from somebody else, and the 49ers say no thanks? That's also really possible. So it's just a slow motion version of the same dance they did with Eric Armstead last year. They just started it earlier. So I think Javon Hargrave, he's still a really good pass rusher. He's not an elite guy anymore at age 32, but I think that Javon Hargrave is somebody who the 49ers would be happy to have back at 5 or 6 million for the year, coming off the torn triceps. So hopefully that explains the contractual maneuvering at play. Proteus says, outside chance Hargrave comes back. You have to depend on other teams not overpaying for him to come back. But it's possible that other teams don't overpay because they didn't see him play throughout most of 2024 with the torn triceps. So it could work out. Maybe it won't. We'll see. That's what's going to make this offseason so interesting. Any more questions? Looks like they're finishing up the anthem at this game. I've taken you through sunset here. It is a beautiful, beautiful view behind me. It almost looks like a painting behind me. Let's give a round of applause for the ring light. The ring light has done a good job capturing this entire scene. What's the temperature here? It's like 35, which is why I'm in a ski jacket. I'm dedicated enough to do a show outside. I did ski today, but I decided to put the ski jacket back on to do this show. Now I'm going to go into the town, into Shaver Lake. I'm going to go into the bar. I'm not going to drink. I'm going to get some food, though, and we'll watch part of this Rams game. Derek Mason's numbers were comparable to Derrick Henry's. Yeah, we're going to go over this just running-wise as far as rushing yards after contact, rushing yards over expectation. Jordan Mason and Derrick Henry actually had similar profiles, upper right of one of those charts. So those guys are the similar types of bullish runners. I don't think that Mason is the threat, and in the receiving game that the 49ers have won it, and that obviously is why the offensive efficiency in terms of throwing to running backs fell off. We actually have a graphic here that SF Data Niners put up, although this is EPA per rush. Well, regardless of the receiving discussion, why don't we put this up just to finish up the show before this game starts? Take a look at this. Jordan Mason, there's his rushing efficiency, 58th percentile. So he was really good in terms of after contact numbers, but he wasn't great in terms of overall rushing efficiency. There was 42% of running backs were more efficient than Jordan Mason. Look who was really good in terms of rushing efficiency. This could kind of wrap up what we were talking about. Brock Purdy. He was excellent deciding when to scramble this year. 328 yards, 5.4 per carry, 5 touchdowns, but the efficiency, 0.43 EPA per rush for Purdy. That is close to 94th percentile. That is really good. And that's going to bring me back to Brock Purdy's excellent weekend. it is ironic to me that the folks who subscribe to draftism are, by definition, inherently overvaluing physical capability and physical talent. They look at physical measurements, and that to them is either the be all end all or the vast majority of their quarterback evaluation. That is wrong. At the quarterback position, it takes a whole lot more. Starts up here. It's a cerebral thing for a quarterback. It's cerebral. It's leadership. There's so much more. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that this is something that's determined primarily by physical ability. The irony of it all is that Brock Purdy actually has a 10-yard split, which might be the most important physical measurement for a quarterback because it's going to determine his ability to get away in short areas. Brock Purdy has a 10-yard split that is more befitting of a first-round pick than a seventh-round pick. So even by the standards of draftists, people that look at draftism and the draft is their be-all, end-all, and physical capability that's correlated with draft picks is what is used to determine who's a good quarterback and who's not. Even by their very standard, Brock Purdy passes as one of the best quarterbacks in the league because he has the arm strength to make all the throws. The highest completion percentage of any quarterback on record with deep throws, 20 or more yards last season. So lose me with he doesn't have the arm strength. He does. The tape doesn't lie. I could sit here and tell you whatever I want, but the tape is going to tell the truth, and what I'm saying matches the tape. So it is the truth. So lose me with the arm strength argument. The one other measurable, maybe the one that we can most accurately gauge, is how quickly a quarterback can move. Not over a 40-yard stretch, over a shorter burst stretch to get away from the pass rush, to manipulate the pocket. And Brock Purdy's 10-yard split is in the 95th percentile of all quarterbacks. That sounds like first-round physical talent to me. So on all fronts, the detractors of Brock Purdy have lost. And it was really, I think, sealed in the minds of even casual observers over the course of this past weekend when they saw guys who are supposed to be more physically competent than Brock Purdy, Jordan Love and Justin Herbert, fail to reach the level that Brock Purdy has reached in the past in the playoffs. All right, pivotal days for the 49ers. There's your 49ers update. Here is your kickoff. So we're signing off right before kickoff from Arizona. The Rams and the Vikings. Enjoy the game. Hit the notification bell because we'll be live right when it wraps up.